So we talked in the last video that whole idea of searching for your voice and finding your voice and spending time in process mode. And I think an awful lot of people, especially early on, are confused about what that looks like. What does it look like when an artist is in process mode? So I've actually created a series of videos to really fully describe that. I had some ideas about a year ago about certain things that I wanted to try in terms of painting that were kind of totally out there compared to what I do now. And over the course of the last year, I've gone from just little sketches to kind of working it up into kind of more fully realized paintings. And then finally, in the final part, you'll see me do a 30 by 30 and be there for the whole process as I go about completing the painting and the decisions that I'm asking myself. And you can see through this what process looks like. So I'm just gonna carry on now and put you over to the first of these videos and follow along, and you'll see how I went from this little sketch here to this finished painting here, 30 by 30, that was the culmination of this whole process mode. Well, hello and welcome to my studio. I want to talk to you today about some new things that I've been trying, and I'll put up these two little sketches to start things off. Every once in a while, I get tired of painting the same thing in the same way, and that's when it's time to move into what's called process mode. And that is where you try different things, you play the what-if game just to try and approach painting in a different way and see what happens. And these two sketches here, I did about a year ago. The idea just struck me that I wanted to do something that was similar to the type of work I did about 10 years ago in watercolor. I did a lot of paintings back then, starting with just broad washes of color, no drawing, just carving out negative shapes and kind of reacting to a landscape image that provoked the painting in the first place. These were very organic. I had no idea where the painting was going, and it was just a journey, constantly creating one shape and then following from that shape to the next until an entire painting would come about. And this was done, as I say, in a very organic way, just designing one shape at a time, and had everything to do with composition and design. Each shape that I would create led to what might be another good shape. But I did this in watercolor, and I tried doing something similar in oil way back when and wasn't happy with it. But I've always kind of had the itch to get back to doing something like that. So these two sketches were done about a year ago, and they're actually based on landscape images, believe it or not, of kind of birch trees with the background, kind of hills, etc. in there. But it was a reaction to the image in line, and then using arbitrary color, just filling them in and having gradations go from one color to another or one value to another within there. And as I say, these were very, very crude. They took about half an hour, 40 minutes each, but there was something about the process that I really liked. I was happy to a certain degree with the finished paintings and thought there could be something here, and other people seemed to be intrigued with them too. So this summer when I went out west on a painting trip, I did a couple paintings in this style out there, plein air paintings. The first one that I did was a forest scene, and you can see in this piece that's somewhat related to the actual values of the scene in front of me. The trees are darker than the sky and darker than the water. This painting I started on location and finished up back at the house later in the day. But I was again intrigued with this, and everybody else that saw it also thought there was something there. So the next day when we painted, I painted a waterfall scene, and I had sort of a little bit more idea of what I was doing for that particular painting, and it went really well. I actually at one point had a crowd of people standing behind me watching me paint. I had a couple people come up and inquire about buying the piece while I was working on it. And at the end of the trip, my host, Jean Peterson, who's a good friend of mine, fabulous painter, as a thank you for her hosting me out there for the time it was, I let her take her pick of any of the paintings that I did out there, and she actually chose the waterfall scene. So that was actually, that made me feel really good too, to think that, okay, someone whose opinion I really value in terms of her ability to assess what's good and what's not, she thought that was the best piece that I'd done the whole trip. So I've been itching to get back to doing something similar to these, and I've just been so busy with my show and everything else, I haven't had time to. Well, I do have another one now that I've done that's going to be at my open house, and I'll just put that up on the easel here for you to look at. And this piece was based on a photograph of that I took on a hiking trip up north with there's rocks and trees, and there's a distant lake and a distant shore. But in this one, I went really abstract, and the values really don't have anything to do with the values in the photograph in terms of the lights and darks. It's just purely the lines were inspired by the actual shapes that were in the photograph. And then I arbitrarily used colors of various lights and darks in different colors just to make a very pleasing abstract arrangement. And I'm really, really happy with this piece. And people that have seen it are kind of intrigued with it, like it too. So at my open house, I'm actually going to have this piece. I'm going to have the Western Tango, which is the piece that I did on the very first piece painting that I painted like this on location out west. And I'm going to start another one now. I'm going to start a 30 by 30 that's going to be inspired by a typical fall scene that I like to do with birches, with some bright color, with some leaves in front. And I'm going to continue to video as I go along and work on this piece. So when you see these pieces and you're kind of puzzled about, gee, where did that come from? That's not like anything he's done before. This is the story about where they've come from and what's led to that creative journey to try something new like this. So as I said, this piece and Western Tango will be here at my open house. And I just wanted to put this out there to give a little explanation about these pieces. And the next video that I will be doing, my next post, will be on the newest one that I'm going to start, which will be a 30 by 30. And it is going to be a little more representational than this one, a little more like the Western Tango, where you'll be able to see the actual trees, the birch trees. You'll have an idea of what the scene is, not quite so abstracted as this. So yeah, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time, and the next time I'll be working on the bigger abstract. So take care. That's all for now.